Hey now! What is up, everybody? Well, my name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and this is Smallville Rewind. And this episode is titled Kinetic. And at the very beginning, we see Chloe interviewing Lex in his mansion. And funny enough, Clark is there, like, kind of goofily trying to set up the camera and just sort of try to figure all that out. And I was trying to remember, like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Chloe interviewing Lex. I just, it's kind of fun to, at the beginning, the start of the episodes, to try to figure out if I can remember what's going on or why something's going on. And there's a moment where Chloe asks Lex if he has any other secret rooms in his plant there, which is a callback to the Jitters episode. And Lex does this thing of, like, he smirks, and it feels like he respects Chloe in a way of how sort of her spunk of just wanting to press that question, get this answer. Chloe would make a great reporter, you know, and but he avoids answering the question, which makes Chloe sort of perk up a little bit. And then when Lex has to go off and deal with something, these robbers with ski masks, they just appear out of nowhere, seemingly walking through the walls. Well, not seemingly, because they did walk through the walls of this mansion. It's funny too, because when we first saw these robbers, they were in their car and they're blasting this heavy rock music. I think it was POD that they were playing. It's just very over the top, very much like, okay, I get it. These guys are the bad guys and they're edgy, they're extreme. So they come in and they're looking through this secret room. One of them even mentions that, like, he knows about the secret room because he was banging one of the cleaning ladies. I'm like, wait, what? And so they're looking for money. They find this disc. And when they get out of there, Clark finds them and there's a scuffle. And because of this kryptonite tattoo that's on the guy's arm, it makes Clark weak. And when Chloe, I like that Clark yells for Chloe to run. And it's kind of funny that Chloe just says, all right, and just runs. Like, just, who cares if what's going to happen to Clark? But of course, no, she had to run. It made the most sense. And so as she's running, she gets grabbed by one of the guys. And she gets thrown out of the window of the mansion. And it was like a, oh shit, because she goes through the glass. And then there's a shot of her hanging out of the window. And normally in any other episode, Clark would just zoom by, pick her out, and save her. But because he was weakened by the kryptonite, she falls. And she falls like 2 stories or whatever. And it was rough as hell. It looked, especially when Clark finally was able to get up and look out the window, you see this shot of Chloe laid out on the ground, out. She almost looks like she's dead. It kind of reminded me of episode 1 of Game of Thrones when Bran Stark gets tossed out of the window. Except for Chloe doesn't become paralyzed and then go on a long journey for seasons upon seasons upon seasons for us to not give a shit about her, only for her to come back and take over the fucking kingdom. No, that's not what happened to Chloe here. Chloe is in the hospital. She broke her hand. She has a concussion. Lex says that, oh yeah, you know, he didn't report to the police that anything was stolen. And you come to find out that he didn't do that because the robbers stole this disc. And this secret disc has... Now, I'm a little hazy because throughout the episode, we're supposed to think, and maybe this is just the case, maybe I'm overthinking it. We're supposed to think that Lex had some company dirt on his father, and he has it on this disc maybe for his back pocket or just for whatever he might need it. And these guys got to it, and Lex wants to get it back because obviously he needs it, right? But by the end of the episode, I'm like, is there more on this disc, or was there more on there? I guess I'll get to why I think that in a minute. So Clark is obviously upset that he wasn't able to help Chloe, save Chloe, I love this scene, and I don't know how they pulled this off, how they shot this. I should probably go back and like see if I can either listen to Talkville or if there's a behind the scenes thing of Clark is in his barn and he's obviously angry, so he's taking these big pieces of wood and he's just crashing his hand through them and shattering the wood like into pieces. And normally I can look at something and pretty much tell if it's CGI or whatnot. This looked real as fuck. This looked like somehow Tom Welling has super strength and actually did this himself. That's like, especially for probably 2002 by this point. This looked great. I like when his parents come in. They obviously see that he's upset. I like when Jonathan specifically points out that, hey, Clark, you need to realize that you are not going to be able to save everybody, which is a great lesson for Clark to learn. It's something that I think Clark and Superman always has to continue to learn over time, and especially coming from Jonathan, it makes a lot of sense. We get introduced to this Zac Efron looking guy who is like the leader of this robbers group. And they're in their hideout. It's super cliched, super goofy. I will say that I didn't love this episode, that I didn't think the episode was great. I didn't think it was terrible or anything like that. I don't know. I'm going to have to keep watching if I find an episode of Smallville that I think flat out is terrible. But this one is just weaker. It's one of the weaker episodes, mostly because the A plot isn't all that great. I still like the episode, though, for the Clark and Lex moments and for even some of the Lana stuff, which I guess some people are having mixed feelings about Lana at this point. But you see they have this grunge hangout area and they're playing rock music nonstop, like loud rock music. They find out on the disc that it has this stuff, this Luthor Corp stuff, right? So then they go back to the Lex mansion. They phase through the walls again. Mind you, Lex was just on the phone yelling at his security of how bad they are because these people got in. And then come to see that, well, they can come in whenever they want. And they tell Lex that they know about his disc. They know what he has on there. And they want to blackmail him. They want money. They want like $1 million, which for 2002, I guess, was a shitload of money. Granted, $1 million is like a lot. But I feel like today, it's like, you're not going to be able to run away and like retire, I think, off of $1 million. Maybe today it would be more like 10 million, or fuck it, between the three of them, 100 million. And so Whitney is at the store. I didn't even know that Whitney had this job at the store. And Clark goes there to pick up something. And Whitney's kind of giving him an attitude. So Clark says, like, hey, is everything cool? And I love that because this has happened more than once. Especially with Whitney. Whitney told Clark before he told Lana about his father being sick, his heart issues. Another case of Whitney telling Clark that he lost his scholarship. And I get it. He doesn't want to tell Lana, I guess. Because maybe he's embarrassed, or maybe he doesn't want her to think a certain way of him. I don't know. You know how some jock guys are, where they don't want to look vulnerable or weak in front of their girlfriends. It's stupid. But especially in high school, I guess you can see why or how he's thinking this. So he tells Clark, who somebody that he's not even really friends with, but sure, why not? And Clark sees one of the robbers in the store. And he doesn't obviously know that's the robber, but he notices his tattoo, his like green tattoo. And so the guys are talking to Whitney, and they sort of befriend him, kind of. They invite him over to their like house party. And it's weird because especially the fake Zac Efron looking dude, he looks to be like 35 years old. And Whitney's supposed to be in high school. I know even the actor who plays Whitney looks older. But he is supposed to be a teenager. And they're like, oh yeah, come to our party. We're going to have beer. We're going to have drinks. I don't know if he said drugs, but it's implied. And Whitney goes like, you know what? Fuck it. Yeah, sure. Why not? And then we cut to Whitney at the house party. There's beer everywhere. And there's girls everywhere. There's even one girl that goes up to the fake Zac Efron looking dude and like makes out with him. And out she puts something in her mouth. So they're definitely doing drugs. And I'm like, what's Whitney doing here? I know he's going through a rough time. I know he's all messed up about his father, his scholarship. He hasn't talked to Lana apparently. But this just seems like a next level above. Whitney came across to me as a dude that was very popular and had a lot of friends. Maybe him losing the scholarship is, does he even play football anymore? I don't know. There's a lot of questions I guess I'm asking all at once. But Whitney goes to this party, like I said, and the guy pressures Whitney into getting a tattoo. It's such a weird scene of he just said, "Oh, let me give you a tour of the place." And he brings him to their tattoo room. And he's like, "What do you think about tattoos?" And Whitney's like, "I don't really like tattoos. I'm not interested." He goes to walk out, and then the other guys block the door in front of Whitney. And I'm like, this looks really weird. Like, Whitney, get the fuck out of there. But he kind of just goes along with it. He doesn't look as worried as he should. They're trying to convince him about the tattoo. Whitney's like, I don't know, man, tattoos are permanent. Yes, that's the correct response. But they're like, oh, don't worry about it. It's an initiative. Fucking get the tattoo. Like, it's so aggressive. And then Whitney just says, all right, fine, whatever. And sits down and lets them do it. I'm like, what is this guy doing here? So he gets the green kryptonite tattoo, and honestly, it looks like shit. Like, it just looks like a green marker that he's just putting on his arm. Then you cut to them clearly drunk and like walking down the street in a tunnel somewhere, and there's this big ass truck coming down, and the Zac Efron guy pushes Whitney in front of the truck. And it's actually a pretty cool effect of Whitney standing up, flinching as the truck goes right through him. And I mean, obviously, I'd be too freaked out to just still hang out with these guys because, like, what if something went wrong? Don't you have to think about fusing into something? Like, it doesn't just happen, right? I mean, because it did just happen. I don't think Whitney was aware that he could do that until it did happen. That could have gone horribly wrong, is the point that I'm trying to make. And yes, I made a note of the underage drinking. I just think not enough was said about this. I know it makes me sound like a complete square, but I mean, obviously, I had my first drink before I was 21, but it's just, it's so casual how you're seeing Whitney drink here. Clark visits Chloe in the hospital. He had already seen her, but she was passed out. So this time she's awake. And Allison Mack, I'm going to say this probably a lot throughout the series when I talk about Chloe and Allison Mack. I know it's maybe a weird subject because of the things that she went through and did in her personal life post the show. So I guess it's always a weird conversation, but I want to emphasize how much of a great actress Allison Mack was on this show. This scene especially, she shows just so much in her performance of being hurt, like physically, but being so appreciative of Clark being there. It's just the way she delivered everything that she said. You could tell she has that crush on Clark. You could tell how much it means to her that Clark was her first visitor and that he's there. He gave her flowers and just this whole thing of like, man, I really like Chloe. I do. Maybe also there's a part of me that just thinks it's a shame as far as what happens. You get a scene of Lana trying to talk to Lex in that the Talon or the coffee, or no, it was her aunt's place, whatever the fuck, right? So Lana's telling Lex about all of these memories that she has here. And like, oh, it's this magical place. And as a kid, it meant this much to me. And yeah, it's the place where my parents met and blah, blah, blah. And Lex Rosenbaum is great here because he just has this reaction of like, uh-huh, yeah. Okay, can we speed this along here? What's the point? And she goes, and so that's why you shouldn't destroy this place. And Lex is like, that's it? Like, you want me to not make my business changes here because you have some sentimental memories? And he's like, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. That just doesn't make sense business-wise for me. I'm sorry, Lana, but you didn't change my mind. And he leaves. And look, Lana might have a self-absorbed tone sometimes to the way she talks about things. especially with this particular subject. It's like, well, yes, this building means a lot to you, but what do you want people to do about it, right? She doesn't have any good plans, or she doesn't have anything to go off of here. And that is the point of this. And Kristen, I know people don't like Lana, or people didn't like Lana, and they don't like the way she's written, but I want to give Kristen Cruick credit on how she acted in the scene when Lex leaves, and she has this look on her face like she's just really disappointed. You know, like maybe it comes across as a little in over her head that she thought that was going to change Lex's mind, but I did think her performance and her face acting was very, very good. And we get a scene of Clark talking to Lana about this. And Lana admits that she's down about it. And I like that Clark says, well, okay, that was harsh of Lex. Was it? But he says, I know Lex. He was probably challenging you to sort of step up and challenge what he said. And I like that Lana took that and said, you know what? You're right. He's right. I do need to do more, you know, like my usual ways of sort of getting what I want isn't going to work this time. Also, Clark is talking to her about Whitney. He tells Lana about Whitney's scholarship. He says that, hey, Whitney's hanging out with these guys and they're trouble. And he says he wants to help Whitney. And even Lana's like, whoa, why do you want to do this? Like, she didn't say this, but she said it in a tone of like, you guys don't like each other. You guys are basically competing over me every single fucking day. And yet you give a shit about what happens to him? If anything, he's your competition. You should want him out. But Clark, that is the thing about Clark. That is the thing that I think people like about Clark, or at least Smallville's version of Clark Kent, is that he does things that nobody else would do, or that nobody else would go to do first. Clark is just a guy that on instinct wants to help people, no matter if it really benefits him personally, or no matter if he even likes the person. His instinct is to help and to save people. And I like there's even a scene later where Lex tells him that, like, dude, you can't save everybody. It's going to eat you alive. You're going to have this messiah complex, and it's not good. We get a scene, too, of Clark following Whitney, and he actually follows them to this location, Whitney and the guys, and they're going to try to get the money from Lex. Lex, of course, doesn't bring the money. He brings an empty briefcase. They're about to kill him, or are they going to kill him? Because they also need the money, so it wouldn't have made sense for them to kill him. But Clark shows up, instantly gets weak from the kryptonite, and I feel bad for Tom Welling having to just, as soon as he enters the room, he has to go like, and just collapse. Like, it's so pathetic looking. And you always hear that same noise, that like meteor kryptonite sounds whenever Clark's around it. It has that same like I can't even describe how it sounds. It's supposed to be like crystal sounding, I guess. But I did like that Clark saved Lex here. Also, Chloe, even though she's in the hospital, I like that she wants to do the research. She's the research girl. She's the one that figures things out. And earlier, Clark said he was going to do research, but it's like, no, you need Chloe. And I like that Chloe even got Pete to like get her a laptop and somehow break through the hospital internet or for phone line or whatever. You gotta remember, 2001, 2002, it wasn't so easy to go online, kids, folks. Also, this is like the one scene that Pete's in. Poor Pete is just having his screen time reduced and reduced more and more. He went from dating Amy Adams to barely getting on this goddamn show. And Chloe's the one that figures out about the tattoo thing, which is so bizarre. Like, whenever the writers have to come up with different ways, and albeit creative ways, in order to use kryptonite, and ways to get the villains their powers, or ways to have it affect Clark, to see Chloe have to somehow out of thin air figure out what's going on, it always blows my mind, because once again, Allison Mack pulls it off. Whitney feels guilty and he goes to Lana and Clark and just admits everything. And I like that when Clark offered to go do it, because obviously he has the ability to, right, to find the disc and stop everything. I like that Whitney, though does say that it's his mess. He started this. He got involved, so he wants to finish it. So they go there. I like that Clark uses his X-ray vision. I love when Clark just uses that in general, but I love that he uses it to find the disc, and obviously doesn't tell Whitney. Whitney doesn't even really ask how did he get it. So the guys show up. For all of this talk of these guys not being able to, or they're running out of time on using the kryptonite tattoos, like they've been doing it so often that it's wearing out or it's wearing their bodies out. We see them do it when they don't have to do it. Like, save it for when you're going to go rob places. Why did they come in through the walls of their hideout just to find Whitney and Clark? It's like you didn't have to be using it now. It's so weird. That's the reason why they're burning through it so goddamn fast. And you're telling me that after all the places that they've robbed by now, they haven't been able to make off with however much money it would have taken for them to stop doing this? Like, I get Lex was the end goal because Lex presumably has all that money, but it's just, man, these guys' plan was awful. It was terrible. And also, one of the guys that has Clark, he apparently got his arm stuck in the bank vault because they tried to rob the bank, and Clark uses his X-ray vision and sees the guy's arm is still stuck in there. And it's so goofy when the guy is there with Clark and he has his loose sleeve just hanging there because he doesn't have an arm, right? And he's talking about it, and he's like, oh, it didn't hurt. Oh, it's no big deal. I'm like, no big deal? Dude, you lost your arm. What? Like, that's a big major thing, and this guy was acting like it was just another day. Lex shows up to save Clark. I like that, so he paid him back for it. Also, the fake Zac Efron dude grabbed Whitney, and he was going to have the car fall on top of the two of them. Presumably, though, because of the tattoo, it was going to go through the Zac Efron dude, but then the tattoo faded away. So when Clark speeds in to grab Whitney and save him, the car comically falls on the Zac Efron guy, killing him. So either way, though, even if Clark didn't do that, yes, Whitney would have died too, but that guy was dying no matter what. He's such an idiot that he didn't realize that the tattoo flamed out. And then the other guys get arrested. And this is what made me question Lex with the whole disc thing. He says to the guys in the cop car, keep my secret a secret and I'll keep your secret a secret. It just made me think, for whatever reason, that maybe there was also something about his research on Clark that he didn't want people to know about, and so that was what he was trying to keep on the hush. We get another scene of Lana pitching this bookstore cafe type place, and she's pitching it about how it can be this, it could be that, and you can have young people there, you can make this money, you can have bands here, musical acts. And Lex says, all right, you know what, deal, we have a deal, I'll do it. And he has this smirk, like, I wonder if he was doing it because it's Lana and he was impressed that she actually put this all together, or does he really think this is a good idea? Like, I couldn't figure that out. And then we get an interesting shot of Lana who's smiling and she's happy for a second that it worked, and then she makes sort of a face of almost maybe disappointment. Like, is she in over her head? Did she realize that, like, oh shit, maybe this is too much? So anyways, guys, a decent episode. Not the best, but not terrible either. It had some good Clark and Lex stuff. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Kinetic? Do you like it? Do you think it's kind of a wasted episode? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!